Hey everybody, Chris Stegall here with MK Partners, joined once again by Matt Kaufman. Matt, thanks for hopping on.
Happy to be here.
And today we are back for the next installment of our redirect app build project. For those of you that tuned in last time, this started as an effort to sort of recreate that redirect functionality that you've no doubt run into on Salesforce in the past. Where you click on a link and you end up on a screen that looks something like this, and then it takes you where it's intended. This is something that we needed for a variety of reasons. If you're curious about them, watch the previous video. But if you want to see what resulted from the efforts of that video, stay tuned right here. And Matt, I think you've made some progress on the tool.
Yeah, I have. We have a Salesforce logo on the screen. But what I've built for us today is actually not very Salesforcey. It's more googly, and so I'm actually wearing my Google hoodie instead. Or maybe I should put on one of my Google hats.
Yeah.
This was the Shrink app that we have seen a lot, sfdc.co. And then at the top, you get this some type of short code, short URL that corresponds to a longer one. And you and I had talked about it in the last video, and I was like, well, I think I can build this because although I spent a lot of time working in Salesforce, I also spent a lot of time working in Google Cloud Platform. And so I kind of, turned off the phone, moved over all the distractions, and said, let me see what I can get done in about an hour or so. In the end, I spent a little more because I added some nice to have features, but it really was not that long. Last time we looked at the code behind the scenes for the page that Salesforce currently has, and we saw that there really was not much to it. We have some HTML here. I think it was about 100 lines. We had some JavaScript. It was also about 100 lines. And there's some server-side code that we don't get to see. That's what translates the little short URL at the top into the long URL. We don't see that. That's on the server side. But even that is not, really that hard of a concept. If you think about it, we're just doing a map, translating one thing to another. And so I started off by setting up an Express app. So I built a Node app, which is JavaScript. When I first started, I was like, well, maybe I will, let's close some of this stuff here. Maybe I'll just have a hard-coded map. And that's essentially what we assume is behind the scenes of the real app, something that translates a short code into a long URL. And the code to use that would be something like this. I set a default value because it's always safe, and a good practice to have a default value just in case. And then we'd look at the URL, at the parameters in the URL to basically get that short code. In this case, it's actually, this is how Express handles it. So it comes in through as a param, even though it's not really a param. And then I was just going to say, if the map up here has the word that I'm looking for, in this case, let's say Google, go ahead, set the new URL to the value, and then redirect to it. So very simple, right? Not much code. Now, this wouldn't take into account having a screen that looks like this. It would just immediately redirect you. And I got that working very quickly because obviously there's not much code involved with that. And then I started thinking, well, okay, I'm done, but this is actually kind of interesting. What if I wanted to do some other stuff? So I'm going to comment this out, and we'll come and look at the second version that I was working on. Oh, let me fix that. And so this second version, I was like, well, what if I sometimes want to redirect immediately? But other times, I want to show the little screen that says, oh, you've got a countdown and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 type of thing. I said, okay, well, all I have to do is add an additional attribute to this map. And that attribute would be like show countdown, right? Something simple. And if it's true, we'll go ahead and display a page. And if it's false, we'll still do that same redirect. And so I built that. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I think I could do even more with this. I also kind of got tired of the idea of like, oh, I'm going to have to maintain this map. I could just see people coming to me all the time asking for changes, and I'd have to do a deployment every time. And I didn't like that. So let's see what this version was here. This one actually might be the same. Oh, no, I remember. Okay. So then I was like, well, maybe I should get the data from somewhere. This is actually not the example. So I started to work on this concept of, okay, a record that we can store in a database. This is not actually it. But what I'm going to do is just kind of jump down. You can see, so I wrote this little function here, get URL from DB. Now, I took a shortcut, a huge shortcut. And so that's why I was able to do this so quickly. I work with Google Cloud Platform a lot. I already had some JavaScript that I wrote once before to interact with the database. And the database in particular that I usually interact with is called Firestore. And so you can see here, if we look, there's a db.js file. And I can come down and scroll down here, and you can see I have this read document function already there. I have a write document, and I have some other stuff in here too. And this allowed me to very quickly interact with the database because I already had the code. It's code that I've written before. So it's, I didn't cheat and steal from somebody else, but it allowed me to kind of fast forward in this development process because I have this helper library that just lets me read and write. And so I wanted to write something that would not only read this database, but also increment it. So I could keep track of how many times someone went to the short URL. And so that's what I have here, read and increment link. If we come back to the top, here it is right here. So we're getting data from the database, and then I'm doing an update where I'm incrementing this field called visits. And then assuming that the document actually existed, so the record existed, I return the record right there. You don't need to really worry too much about this. This is specific to Firestore. If we were to use a different database, the code would be different. But I'm wearing my Google sweatshirt. So today we're working with Google Cloud Platform and Firestore. And so this get URL from DB was kind of where I landed. I was like, okay, well, let me, instead of having to hard code all these mappings, which I could see in my mind growing and growing forever, let's store that in a database, and that allows us to have more functionality too, like keeping track of the visits and even some other stuff that I decided to build in too. You can see here, I was like, well, what if the length of the countdown should be different? Like, what if I want certain URLs to be longer and others to be shorter? I set the default to 5, but we can do that. And then I was like, well, what if we create a link for customers of Mambo Merge who want to go link to our support site? We want the Mambo Merge logo on that screen. We don't want the Salesforce logo, and we don't want the MK Partners logo. So I'd like to be able to substitute the image URL as well. And again, I don't want to hard code any of this. I like to use databases. So I went ahead, and this is the Firestore database available on the Google Cloud Platform. It's a real-time database. If you're not familiar with it, I recommend it. I use it a lot. And what I've done here is I created a collection, which is kind of like an array or a list, although it's also kind of like an object, of links. I called it links. And in it, I started to create my documents, which are like my objects for each short code. And so here I have one called Goog. I have one called Mambo, MKP, YouTube, and we'll go ahead and create a new one even on this call. Now, I don't have an interface to create this. So ideally, I would create some type of user interface to populate this database because it would be much more user-friendly, and it would guarantee consistency. If I make a typo here, the app won't work. But you can see for Mambo, we have a countdown of 50, an image URL that corresponds to the Mambo Merge logo on our website. Here's the short code, Mambo, and the full URL that I want to go to, as well as the number of visits that we've had so far. And I'm going to go ahead and just get this back down to 0. We'll update that. And now we'll test it out. So I've actually already deployed this. So not only is the database live, but this URL shortener is live too. So I'm going to go ahead to my new URL that I've created called go.mkp.dev. And I'm going to put in the short code of Mambo. And we'll see here it's ticking away. Now, while it's ticking, I'm going to come back here, and we can see that the visits is 1 already.
Nice.
And if I were to do it again and do it quickly, we'll see the visits of 2, right? I'm doing that fast enough that I'm probably not making that change myself. It actually is the code. Now the countdown is 50. That's kind of long. What if I want to make it down to 24 or some random number? I can come here and refresh, and now it's 24.
Nice.
And the logo is the Mama Merge logo. Now, let's say I don't want to see the Mama Merge logo. I want to see the MK Partners logo. Well, that went right away. And it went right away because I don't have a countdown. So if I want to change that, I can put in a countdown. And this, again, is why having a UI, user interface, is such a good thing, because if I spell countdown wrong or if I capitalize something, it's not going to work. But we're going to go ahead and put in a countdown there. You can see it's there now. It's a countdown of 6. I'm going to go ahead and do it one more time. Go.mkp.dev. And instead of doing Mambo, we'll do MKP. And now we have that, and it's counting down.
Nice.
Yeah. So like that is about an hour, maybe 2 hours with all the extra stuff. But again, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And I was able to take a shortcut by using some of the code that was already out there that we looked at last time. And then another shortcut by using existing code that I had too.
Yeah. And I think I know the answer to this, but the count is specific to the link, which is almost like the record. So like if I had Mambo and /mm and they both point at mambomerge.com, it's only going to count the visits on Mambo when I do Mambo.
Right.
It's not going to add them to all destination URLs that match.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we could actually do another document. I'll go ahead and do one now. So let's say, Cactus Force is coming up soon, right? No. So we might want to do something like this, Cactus Force 24. And the URL could still be something at Mama Merge, right?
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and do a countdown just so that we can see it. And we'll say 10.
I think countdown needs to be a number too.
Oh, you're right. Number. Thank you so much. 10. And let's leave the logo the same. We'll just do that. Okay. So I'll take that. Let me just refresh this. See if I can get it to show up. Well, I thought I created it. Did I create it in the wrong space? I may have created it in the wrong space. No, there it is. Okay. Cactus Force 24. Okay. And now I will go to go.mkp.dev/Cactus Force 24. And we see it. So each link here has its own set of data, its own record into this database, essentially. And so we can see here that the countdown is 10, and for the Mambo one, the countdown can still be 24. The visits will be unique too. And so this will allow us to have a bunch of attributions if we want over time. But the other thing is, let's say we want to use a more generic link. So Cactus Force 24, we don't want to print that out on any pieces of paper, because at the end of that conference, we now have a bunch of pieces of paper that no one ever wants to look at again. So it makes more sense to do something like Mambo trial, right? And here we'll have URL, and we'll go ahead and type it in again. And we would probably go to a very specific landing page, but let's just got it right this time. So what's nice is at any point, I could come in here and essentially like back up this record and say, okay, it is now, February 1st. We've been running it for X amount of time. We're going to back it up, put it somewhere else, and it'll no longer be used anymore. And so we would, be able to do that. And I could just come in. Well, let me go ahead and actually use it real quick, and that way we'll have that visits. There we go. And so now if we come back here, we'll see visits is 1. So at any point, I can come in here and just say, you know what, I'm gonna just look at it and see, okay, in the last 15 days, last 2 months, we've gotten 24 hits. Write that down, export it to a spreadsheet, whatever I want, set it back to 0, and now we can start measuring again. And if I went ahead and built a UI for this, which I may end up doing, we could have that do it automatically. So I think if I were to build a UI for something like this, I'd probably build it as an extension to Salesforce or an extension to Marketing Cloud, because I think that's where we really want this data and where we would set it up. I don't expect an admin or a marketing specialist to go log into a Firestore database and set up these things this way. But luckily, there's an easy API that's built into the Firestore product, which is how I'm writing to it and reading from it already. So I could easily extend this code here to maybe have some hidden feature that writes to it. Or like I said, we could do it from Salesforce or even Marketing Cloud. And then maybe even pull in the results back into Salesforce, like on a campaign or in Marketing Cloud in a data extension.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was going to say the same way that you like increment the visit record from here, you probably also could say, if it's the end of the month, grab the total number of visits, put that somewhere, and then reset to 0 and just automate that too.
Yeah, and I didn't want to store too much data in here, but technically I could have added a whole nother, like a collection basically as a child of this. So for instance, I could do here, we could do dates, and then we would put in a date, something like that, right? Actually, we'll just do visits. We'll just make it an example. But I could have some type of process that like essentially keeps track of every date for each URL, and then we know how many visits it had on a given date. And we could do something like that. Or if we pass in other pieces of data, so it's like slash Mambo trial question mark, which is how we pass in parameters, and some type of attribution code, we could do that too. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that we could kind of build more and more functionality on this if we wanted to. So we may end up doing more videos on this in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty like impressive, especially for, and I know you said you had done some stuff in the past that like made this possible, but yeah, this is way more than we had, before.
Last video when we were,
functionality that's been missing in Marketing Cloud it's been on the idea exchange for a long time to be like, where's our custom redirects? We fell in love with them in Pardot. Why are they missing?
Yeah. And the more I work with Marketing Cloud, the more I'm impressed with it as a platform, because there's so much you can do with it. But I do feel like sometimes a powerful platform is more of a self-service type of thing where you can go build it instead of having the apps pre-built for you. So I'll work on some type of user interface to either set this data or pull it back into a data extension, or both even. And that way it will be, that missing piece that we right now are waiting for.
Yeah. I feel like I had another question that came to mind. It wasn't about Marketing Cloud. I don't know. It'll come up as soon as we end this recording. I will ask you offline. I will put it in the description of the video.
Right. Well, and if anyone else has questions, they can also ask in the comments.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could see us doing at least one, if not a couple more videos on this. I'll work on connecting this to Salesforce in some way, either campaigns or Marketing Cloud, or maybe both. And then we'll see. I mean, another idea that you and I had discussed prior to the call was, what if instead of just having that URL, what if this was actually a form and it was a gate that someone had to fill out the form in order to move on? And then you could actually not just measure how many people clicked on it, but actually start to attribute leads to the URLs. And so again, if we printed on a shirt or had it at our booth, Mambo trial, we would be able to say, okay, well, not only do we know that 100 people clicked on it, but here are the leads that we got from it, and here are even maybe the opportunities that we won from it, or the orders that we received from it. And I think that's really the full circle that makes it really valuable. It's nice to know that you had eyes on the paper, so to speak, and that people clicked, but it's nicer to be able to tie that to actual revenue.
Yeah. And once we had a form, then we probably could add some like parameters based on the form results where we say, oh, if you selected this for your industry, let's direct you to this Mambo Merge site for that industry kind of thing.
Yeah, actually. So like if you think about Salesforce and the industry clouds, when you now sign up for Salesforce, they ask you those questions. And I know, like, for instance, if you were to say, oh, I work at a nonprofit, they're going to steer you towards the template for nonprofits. And if you say, oh, I work at a manufacturing company, they're going to steer you towards that as well. And so we could do the same type of thing. So you could actually dynamically route the person, not just to one URL, but to different URLs depending on the form.
Yeah. So eventually we could build a search engine that's just
right. Reinvent the entire internet.
We scour the entire internet, and then based on what you put in the input box, we serve up the relevant websites.
Yeah.
No, cool. That seems like a very powerful tool, and I like that it's already moved out of hard coding into its, this has a better chance of being scalable.
Right. I mean, after working with Salesforce for so long, I think, it's nice to do an MVP that's hard coded, but really I always want to have things powered by a database.
Yeah. And I think the way that the logos were kind of like hot linked with just the URL to the logos, I feel like is also conducive to having people build their own and not have to like go find the person that has the keys to upload an image. And then I have to go, hey, sorry, can you get this to me in the right pixels and the right aspect ratio? And we go back and forth. It's just like, no, grab an image online. It'll apply.
Yeah. And then when the image changes, it just, as long as the URL sign is fine, the same, it'll still work.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you again, Matt, for building that and walking us through it. And putting it together in a way that was kind of like fun to follow along with, like the iterations commented out as opposed to just the finished product. Thank you, of course, everybody, for watching. Please do be sure to like and subscribe to the video here. And as Matt said, if you have questions, comments, ideas for future developments, please leave those in the comments as well, because that is a great way for us to get ideas about what you're interested in hearing about. Of course, until next time, stay tuned here. We'll be back with more Salesforce news, app ideas, updates in the world of tech, and just fun problems that we feel like solving. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks.